So I'm going to open the video with a very controversial statement. You will be a much better golfer if you stop looking at the golf ball. And if you can do this with every single club in the bag, you're going to take your golf to a whole new level. So I know what you're thinking, very controversial and very out there. You want me to not look at the golf ball, but still hit high quality shots with every club in the bag? Well, absolutely. So when the golf ball is on the ground, maybe a little different with driver, but I'm going to get to driver later in the video. When the golf ball's on the ground, whichever club it is that we've got in our hand, we want the club traveling down so that it hits the ball and then the ground. Dependent on how much loft's on the club, so the shorter the club wants to be traveling down more. As you move onto the fairway wood, it's still traveling down, but a small amount. So the key is, can you learn how to control the low point of your golf swing and then move the ball around in your setup to change the angle of attack? Well, the answer is yes, so you're going to learn how to do it now. But most golfers will agree, and you can comment below whether you agree with this or not, that their practice swing feels fantastic. But once the ball's there, all kinds of things feel like they change, and the two swings are completely different. We're going to make sure from today's video that your practice swing and your actual swing are the same, because you're actually focused on trying to do the same thing. So what you're going to do is take a tee, and if you're on grass, dead easy to do, or maybe like a piece of chalk on a driving range mat, and you're going to draw a little line into the mat, or on the ground. And what we're going to do is I'm going to set up with that line maybe just inside my left heel, about left heel, left armpit. Now, obviously with a wedge, we're going to feel that the ball's very much in the centre, opposite the sternum. And what we're going to do is we're going to swing and try and hit that line. So what we're going to have to do is shift our weight forward and feel that the golf swing gets at its widest when both arms are stretched out in front of me. So we're going to set up, ball will be in the middle, and try and hit that line, which is probably a good 4 inches ahead for me. Now actually touch slightly ahead of that, and it'll take you a few goes if you're not used to this. Fantastic. So then we're going to put the ball in the middle of the stance, have that line on the ground where we want it to be, make that swing, try and touch there. We should see on TrackMan that the low point will show an A, which is after or ahead of the golf ball. So we're going to set up. Strike felt good. Pretty accurate. We can see low point 3.8 inches ahead. Clubs travelled down 4.1 degrees. Carry at 131 and total at 141. So we could see there, I managed to get that low point nearly 4 inches ahead, which was good because I said we were about 4 inches ahead. And that made that club travel down quite a lot, 4 degrees, by the time it got to the golf ball. So as we move through the bag, like I said, as the clubs get longer and less lofted, we want the club still traveling down, but not as much. So we're going to keep the line in the same place in our setup. But instead of the ball being in the middle for the pitching wedge, kind of wedge to 7-iron, 6-iron is now going to be fractionally further forward. So maybe move that half an inch further forward, but still try and touch that line. And again, felt really, really simple with no ball there. And as I'm demonstrating this, hopefully I'm able to do this quite easily. But what you'll see with golfers is when they practice, they don't touch the ground in the practice swing. So they can't tell where the low point would be. And they're not touching the ground at all, so they're just going to thin it or top it. But very often when they swing, they sit on that back foot because they're trying to help the ball in the air, or they're trying to hit the ball hard. We're just ignoring the golf ball. The golf ball's simply there and will just get in the way of us making a good swing. So again, I'm going to set up with that ball kind of at the line opposite the armpit. Ball slightly forward of centre now. Still going to try and hit the line, and I should see the low point slightly less far ahead and the club travelling down a little bit less with 6-iron, but still a good solid result. Just a little bit pushy, but we can see low point now 2.6 inches ahead. Clubs travel down 3 degrees, carry at 183. So we can see there, I kept my low point pretty consistent in the swing, and the ball position is then changed the angle of attack to allow the different loft and the different length of shaft to give me the desired result with 6-iron. So now I'm going to jump all the way up to 3-wood, but obviously as the clubs get longer, that ball position is going to move slightly forward, but we still want that low point control to be good. So we're now going to scuff the line a little bit further away from me. So still going to have that line opposite my left armpit. I'm going to start with the club probably just behind the line now. So we're probably ideally saying with here, I'm only going to be an inch, maybe an inch and a half at most ahead. So I'm going to do the practice swing, looking at the line. And again, I've hit the line, controlling my low point. Now the key with 3-wood, and 3-wood isn't for everyone, is can I now maintain that focus ahead of the golf ball, not looking at the front or the back or try to get underneath, just let the golf ball get in the way and the club do the work for me. So the line is forward. Again, I'm looking at the line now slightly ahead of the ball, put my swing on it. That felt about as good as it gets for me. We can see the low point 0.6 inches ahead. Clubs now only travel down 1 degree, carry at 211 and total at 222. So you can see, incredibly simple. I'm not saying this is easy. This is something that I'm quite good at, the skill of controlling that low point. But I definitely think if golfers can get used to practicing, touching that line, touch the similar place. The low point isn't where you hit the ground, it'll actually be the deepest part of the divot. But if you can start touching the ground in a consistent place, then you can learn where your ball position needs to be for you. Because not everybody's great at getting that low point forward, or as far forward as here. But if you're consistent, you can start learning. But then the final piece of the puzzle is all about driver. Okay, now the big difference with driver is the ball's in the air, not on the ground. So in a perfect world, we would like the low point to be behind the ball, not ahead, so that the club hits up, launches the ball higher with a little bit less spin. So again, we're going to draw that line on the mat. And obviously what we would be doing here is teeing up in front. But again, I'm going to set up with that opposite my left armpit, make a few swings. And even though I'm not looking to hit the ground on the shot, I'm just going to try and brush the ground around there for now. Now, see, actually, I brushed further back behind, so I would have just hit up even more than that. So from there, you might even at address, just pop the hips that way a little bit and create a little bit more spine tilt to help. And definitely for me there, even though I'm looking at the line, I'm actually touching a little bit behind with driver. So that should be perfect, really. So then I'm going to tee the ball up in front of the line. So I'm going to set up still with the line opposite that armpit, put that little bit of tilt in there, make my swing and miss the ground, but now ideally we're going to see the club low point behind, club travelling up, and help me hit a nice long and accurate tee shot. Something like that. So we can see low point 5 inches behind, clubs travelled up 3.2 degrees, just down that right side, but 250 carry and nearly 270 total. So one of the most important skills in the golf swing is that ability to control that low point. Like I said at the start of the video, most people's practice swing and actual swing are so different because on the practice swing, they're focused on what they're doing. The actual shot, they're just focused on trying to make the ball do something. Well, the idea with golf is that's a stationary ball sport. So it shouldn't actually matter what the ball's doing. I get in every other ball sport where it's moving, you have to react to the ball. But if you can control your low point, whenever the ball's on the floor, we want the low point ahead, so you can look ahead. When you're on driver, ideally behind, so look behind. But get used to hitting and touching that line, move the ball into the appropriate place, and I guarantee that that will work with every single club in the bag.